I just made a video. Does porn cause dementia? It's not edited yet, so it'll come out. But I'm like, I'm definitely going to get, you know, but like it's based on science that, and from all the brains I've seen in the brain maps, I've seen thousands and thousands of brains, but probably like maybe, I don't know, 300 of people who have erectile dysfunction. And most of them have a marker for what would be considered the biomarkers for dementia and Alzheimer's. Like there's measurable ways. These are biomarkers, biological markers of the abnormal is what the science says. I don't love the word abnormal. Show me a normal person, right? But there's an optimal brain map and then there's suboptimal. And, anyways, that's why I want people to know if you can connect the dots between this stuff, you can save yourself a whole lot of problems. And the reason I made that video is because there's case studies in science now saying that dementia causes porn use. And I'm like, listen, it's because what's happening is men who are let's just say the case studies were like, it's a 72-year-old gentleman. He starts watching porn in front of his family. But what dementia did was cause disinhibition of a habit this person likely has had for 50 years. So there was no talk of, did that man watch porn before he had dementia? So I want people to know, like, what we see in the science is that there's a brain pattern associated with dementia, which then can lead to disinhibition, so you got to connect the dots on the science.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Back to ED. I think we have premature ejaculation and then we have delayed ejaculation. They're kind of two different things, right? And I think the everybody will understand kind of what the differences are. How does porn lead to either one of these? What are the differences? What's kind of happening neurologically within the brain that's causing both of these to happen?
It'll go back to our thoughts on that healthy baseline arousal between 1 and 10. For intensive purposes of thinking about it, healthy baseline arousal is at 5. So delayed ejaculation goes along with erectile dysfunction. Basically, you need very high levels of stimulation to be able to get an erection and be able to have an orgasm. So, like, if you're used to level 15, delayed ejaculation is you're with your partner, she's an 8, you need 15, gap of 7. It takes you a long time to try to get that gap closed. And then, if you've talked to any men with erectile dysfunction, and I'm sorry if there's any partners listening, like a lot of times the men will try to run some fantasy to close the gap, to close the spread so that they can get up to a level 11, 12, 13, so they can actually finish with their partner, which that's tragic because the man doesn't want to be in that position. Certainly the partner knows something's going on because this is getting, a little challenging. So basically when it comes to delayed ejaculation, it's that your brain needs level 15 and it's likely in this strained brain pattern. That's delayed ejaculation. Premature is different. It's the opposite. So premature is like you're down, your baseline level is low. And so the minute it's stimulated, it hits the ceiling. So like basically we'll just say like your baseline arousal is down at 3 and you become stimulated. So you go from 3 to 10 right away. And so a lot of the people and a food for thought on that is that a lot of people who struggle with premature ejaculation, they might have depression or they might have like kind of low mood or low affect. It's kind of like a lower and slower brain, lower baseline arousal, and then they very quickly become sexually aroused because of that.
Yeah. You talked about the kind of playing of the fantasies or like the reels while engaging in sex. You may have heard stories like this. I specifically remember a client talking to me. Him and his wife had watched pornography together. They were both into kind of the voyeur POV style. They started kind of filming some of their stuff in the bedroom. But what he quickly realized was like he reached a point where he couldn't get off just with her. He would have his camera videoing the act. She thought he was videoing it. He was actually watching pornography while he was having sex with his wife. That was one of the most heartbreaking things that I had a man tell me. It was like, I knew them personally. Like he was a client that actually had a personal relationship. So I knew his wife as well. And it just struck me.
Yeah, no, I work with people who they have to, like, basically almost all the people I work with are doing some form of that especially even during the recovery process, because this is the part that I was saying that I think is the most, challenging part, is that if you keep doing that, you keep reinforcing the brain pattern that you've been using. You have to stop doing that. And the same thing about the little blue pill. Like, people go, what do I do about that? I'm like, that's a Band-Aid. So if you're bleeding out, you need a Band-Aid. But I consider my work to be stitches. After I look at what a person's brain is doing, I can use the technology to close the gap. So that's the coolest thing that I think exists that people don't know about. You can use tech to close that gap for you, and then your brain is running in the optimal. But they're like, what do I do in the meantime? I'm like, if you have to use the little blue pill, like, use it sometimes, but don't depend on it, because if you're depending on it, then you're never giving your brain the opportunity to become aroused by itself. And it's the same thing with fantasy. If you accidentally keep running fantasy when you're with your partner, you now are just reinforcing the need for higher level of stimulation from fantasy. But like, the solution is you have to get back to healthy baseline arousal in your brain. And then, the way I talk about it is it's difficult because your brain may unwire from needing level 15, but it might not rewire back to healthy level 5. And check this out, get this, because it's never been there. Like, if you found porn when you were 12, that's the danger of the seeds of addiction. You found it when you were young. It changed your brain right away. You've never had a nervous system that was running at healthy arousal. It changed early and you reinforced it over and over. So when the people I work with recover, they actually feel better than they've ever felt. They think better, they have better mood, because essentially what we're doing is we're bringing your brain back to the healthy arousal it's never had. And if I can just share one more thing about ED, because I've thought of it a couple times and I didn't want to forget. When we talk about arousal baseline, it is part of autonomic nervous system dysfunction. The autonomic nervous system is the automatic branch of your nervous system. So a lot of people know about sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic. Sympathetic is fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest or digest. So it's the automatic part that ramps you up as a stress response. It's the automatic part that slows everything down so you can digest and sleep. So here's the thing when it comes to healthy arousal is you have to have the perfect balance of sympathetic and parasympathetic. That's what in the middle, the brain pattern in the middle does. You're calm enough and relaxed enough to be aroused, but you're also arousable. So what happens when people are in strained brain or the pendulum effect, they're stuck in sympathetic dominance most times. Their systems are just totally stressed. Porn will do that to you. Porn will stress your system out. It keeps it in fight or flight, basically. So basically you're never able to hit that perfect balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic is necessary to become aroused to get an erection. The parasympathetic is necessary to have an orgasm. So you need the two of them in that perfect balance, and that balance is way off in arousal dysfunction.